Hi, this is Bret Primack. This is my Filmmaker's blog, the Kickstarter project, Pauly Cohen, Trumpeter. Day one. The project launched today. We raised about $1,500 today. The goal is $6,000. That's pretty good for the first day. I know, though, that the way these things work, I've never run a Kickstarter campaign, but I've watched them, is that there's an initial burst, then things kind of slow down, and they pick up at the end. And what you have to do is, you have to work it. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be working it by reaching out to my YouTube, my Facebook, my Twitter, my jazz communities all over the planet to try and support what I'm doing. I guess the first question most people ask when I tell them about this project is, why are you making a film about Pauly Cohen? He's not someone that is really in the public eye, so to speak, although a lot of people know him and love him as a person and love his music. Why does he interest me as a subject? Well, there's a number of reasons. I'll talk about one here right now. I grew up in the late 50s and early 60s. The big band era wasn't that far back of me. In fact, my dad was a musician who played the piano and led a band during World War II overseas called the Skyliners, and they sometimes backed Bob Hope. But after the war, my dad became disenchanted with the music business and came back to his home in Hartford, Connecticut, got a day job, and just did the occasional gigs on weekends. Very disenchanted with the music business, so much so that when I was growing up, his thing was always, don't go in the music business. In fact, he didn't encourage me to practice. Although I was a young trumpeter and loved the music, a little push probably would have sent me in an entirely different direction. But my dad didn't want me to go to the music business. I ended up being a journalist and a filmmaker and kind of backed into it. And yeah, he's right, it's a really fucked up business. As Sonny Rollins once told me, it's even worse than the boxing business. So I grew up around musicians, and particularly around a lot of big band musicians. And I was fascinated by the music. And my first interest in jazz was with big bands. Maynard Ferguson's big band, Dizzy Gillespie. By the time I was 15, I was lucky enough to hear Stan Kenton and Count Basie and Maynard. So there was something special about that music and those musicians, and that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this film. There are still a lot of big bands all around the world, in schools, from elementary schools to colleges, and there's other kinds of big bands, rehearsal bands, and a few serious bands, big bands that are pushing the envelope, like Bob Mintzer's big band, the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra, on the college realm, the 1 O'Clock Band at North Texas. But largely, big band music isn't really at the forefront of our culture. So I want to capture some of these elderly musicians before they leave us. Thanks, and I'll be back at you tomorrow.